Hey, everybody, this is Chris
and Kathy
from PetAbility Podcast. We wanted to take a minute to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate every listener and are grateful for this platform.
Please help us share our vision by subscribing to PetAbility Podcast through your favorite streaming app. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at PetAbility Podcast and share our content on social media.
You can also support the show by making a donation. Simply go to our website at petabilitypodcast.buzzsprout.com and click on the heart symbol at the top of the page. Thanks for listening.
We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to PetAbility. I'm your host, Kathy Simons.
And I'm your host, Chris Cranston. Our podcast provides interviews and information to help your pets live their best lives. Good afternoon, Kathy. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Chris. I'm fantastic. It's so beautiful here in New England today. It's like 60 degrees. This is perfect pug weather. Get this. I was out earlier today and I saw the cutest thing. It just stopped me in my tracks because it was so cute. I saw a group of crows. FYI, Chris, do you know what a group of crows is called?
A murder.
Oh, good job. Good job. I should have known that.
You can't pull trivia by me, Kathy. Come on.
I know what I was thinking. So I saw them and I just stopped because one crow had found this like ball of like twine, like a ball of string. And he was so excited about it. He like grabbed it. And he just like ran. He didn't fly. He like hopped to show all his other crow friends. And they were like, ah! And then they came over and then they dropped it. And all three of them were looking at it and like, where did you get this? And then he picks up the string and then they all go back to where he found the string to see. It almost seemed like they were going back to find more string. It was like the biggest find. It was so cute. It was so cute.
That was great observation on your part.
I know. And maybe I was a little anthropomorphic there, but they were just so excited about this find. And I think we just don't give these crows enough credit for how intelligent they are. And it seemed like he was saying, hey, guys, come here. I found some string.
Well, I remember in college, of course, that was decades ago. And they said that, the first kind of thing that differentiated man from animal was the ability to use tools until they saw the crow use a tool.
I wonder what they're going to make with that string. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to delay this interview any longer with my crow stories, Chris, but I'm really excited about today's guest because today we're going to be talking with Lori Chamberland. And Lori is the education manager for Fear Free. And as you know, Chris, I recently took the Fear Free certification. And so I am now a certified Fear Free veterinary professional. And this course was a real eye-opener for me with regards to the emotional lives of animals. And as you know, I probably mention that every single podcast we talk about because I'm interested in, and as are you, interested in the emotional lives of our pets. And I remember the very first time I heard about the Fear Free movement, I think it was late like 2016, and I was at a lecture. And I wish I could remember the veterinarian's name so I could give her credit here, but let me tell you what she did. She simulated what it was like for cats to have an experience going to the vet. So she put a video camera in a carrier without the cat to capture this. So through the lens of the camera, we get to see what it's like for a cat to take this trip to the veterinarian. And it starts off immediately. As soon as the camera is in there, you see that, the person picks it up and the carrier sort of rocking a little bit back and forth. And then you see the carrier in the car. And from the camera's perspective, you can see things going by. You can see that you're moving. You can hear noises of trucks. You can definitely see trucks whizzing by you. And then you get to the vet and they bring your carrier in and, somebody comes up to your crate and goes, hey, kitty, how you doing? And you just look like a big giant head, because you're just like right there in their face. And then a dog comes up and sniffs the carrier, and the video ends with two gloved hands, reaching in.
Wow.
To get this cat, right? And I thought, oh my goodness, how terrifying is that? How terrifying is that? And it's no wonder we have more trouble getting people to bring their cats into the vet than our dogs. It's because the whole process seems so scary to them. And that's sort of where, for the camera's point of view, it sort of started right away with the getting in the carrier and going on this ride.
And I wonder if, when you were talking about the dog sniffing the carrier and the hands reaching into the carrier, a lot of times for our animal friends, we think that their crate and that hiding place is a safe place. But as you were describing it, I was thinking, gosh, how vulnerable they must have felt. Like they were trapped there.
I know.
Right?
And that's when I was like, we've been doing this wrong the whole time. We've been doing this wrong, And I get it. I mean, to some extent, because when I started as a technician, there really wasn't a thought about the overall, repercussions of fear, in the veterinary practice. So, when I started, we were under the impression that the best thing that we could do for these animals is to get whatever we had to do with them done quickly and get them out the door. And we didn't consider, that pet would now have a lifelong fear of going to the vet. We weren't taught to stay in the moment with that pet, and we weren't taught to treat that animal as a whole. So physically, right, and psychologically, right, and that is our responsibility as pet professionals. We really should be looking at that. So after I took the fear-free certification, I reached out to Lori because I was like, we've got to talk to Lori because we need to spread the word about the fear-free movement. So not only in veterinary medicine, Chris, we need to talk about it in places like the groomers, right, our training methods, and our fear-free homes as well. So this is about everyone. This is about everyone who owns a pet. So before we get started, let me just give you a little stats on our friend Lori, okay? Lori Chamberlain is the education manager for Fear Free, as I mentioned before, where her and her team create science-backed, engaging online courses, videos, handouts, and webinars for the veterinary community, for the pet owners, for the groomers. And before joining Fear Free, Lori was the director of Karen Pryor Academy, which is really a big deal. That's really a big deal. That's a big deal, where she oversaw its worldwide facility and the staff and the development of positive reinforcement training courses. And Lori does her own training, and she is also apparently owned by 2 border collies, which I think is the exact phrasing that you should use when you have border collies. You were owned by them. Yeah. So
they're smarter than all of us put together.
Without further ado, please welcome Lori Chamberlain to the show.
Welcome, Lori. Hey, I just have one request. Do you promise to help us make a fear-free podcast today, Lori?
Thank you guys so much. Absolutely. I promise to keep this fear-free if you'll do the same for me.
Deal. It's a partnership, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's just jump right in now that we have you here. What is fear-free? Again, I'm from the Midwest. When I talk about these things with my friends and family, they think most of the stuff that I am bringing up is gobbledygook. They're like, we have never heard of that. What are you talking about? But in my little bit of research, it makes so much sense. And it seems just like, duh, why haven't we been doing this all along? So please explain for our audience.
Absolutely. So Fear Free is an educational company, and we have a simple mission to prevent and alleviate fear, anxiety, and stress in pets. And I think back to about a month ago or so, I saw a sign at my own veterinarian's clinic, and it said, "A good veterinarian talks to animals. A great veterinarian listens when they talk back." And I thought, that pretty much embodies what Fear Free is all about. Of course, my vet is indeed a fear-free certified veterinary practice.
Of course.
But it's really about protecting not only the physical health, but also the emotional health of the animals that we care for, whether you're a veterinarian, a trainer, a groomer, a daycare boarding provider, or a pet sitter, or even a pet owner. So we've really branched out. Fear Free began in the veterinary industry, but has since branched out to many different arms of people who take care of pets as well as pet owners themselves. Some of the core concepts of fear-free include listening to animals. That's a big, huge part of it. So we listen to them via their body language. So learning to speak dog and learning to speak cat is really a big part of it. And then taking into account the animal's perspective of what is it that, and that story that you told about the cat in the carrier, perfect example of that. Like, what do they see? What do they hear? What do they smell? What do they taste? What do they feel? Like, what is going on every step of the way from the animal's perspective? And actually, that visit for most of these animals actually even starts before they even get in the car. It starts with the carrier for a lot of cats. And if we don't positively condition that carrier beforehand, now you've already got a stressed out cat getting into the carrier because they already know, oh crap, the carrier means I'm going to the vet. Now they get in the car, their stress levels get even more amped up on the way to the veterinarian. Then by the time they get to the vet, they're already stressed out, and never mind trying to poke and prod at them with needles and try to examine them and take their temperature. Like it's just a cascade of fear that's been going since before they even got in the car in a lot of cases.
And with that,
and when they get to the hospital, I go, okay, what is a truth here when I start taking vitals? Like, do you really have a little bit of an elevated temperature, or is it up because you're so stressed? Do you really have a little bit of an elevation in your blood pressure, or is that also related to stress? So you have
respiratory rate, panting.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's such a great point, that it's hard to even get accurate vital signs and accurate diagnoses sometimes because the animal is so stressed out that what we're reading as a resting heart rate isn't actually, it's so far elevated because that animal is already in a fear and panicked state that it makes it hard for veterinarians to do their job properly when the animal's in such a state.
Right.
And you talked about listening, and Kathy and I have mentioned this before too, and you said you're observing and so forth. So can you expound on that, Lori? Like, how do we listen to our pets? What are some of the things that we're looking for? And maybe break it down into a few signs in a dog and a few signs in a cat.
Yeah, definitely. So a big part of Fear-Free is to always observe the body language of the animals you're working with. And Fear-Free uses a standardized objective scale. It's called the FAS scale, stands for fear, anxiety, and stress. And that scale really allows us to create a common language between that animal's veterinarian, groomer, trainer, owner, etc. So we kind of look at not just stress behaviors, but breaking it down in terms of levels, with a 0 being a calm, chill, completely relaxed cat or dog, and a level 5 being I'm going to bite your head off if you don't get away from me, cat or dog. So it's really about noticing those signs of stress early on before we get to chance to escalate to aggression. So some of those early signs of stress, which often go unnoticed, can be things like blinking or lip licking or lifting a paw, yawning. A lot of times you'll see a dog yawning, or it's not because they're tired usually, it's because they're stressed. Or even looking away. In cats, you might see the paws getting tucked more tightly to the body, the tail getting tucked, everything. Cats will kind of draw everything in. You may see the ears start to flatten or look back. So those are kind of the early stages of stress. Like, that's the animal saying, pay attention to me. I'm trying to tell you that I'm not feeling so great. I'm a little scared. And then we get into some of the more moderate levels of stress. So it could be any of the things that I mentioned before. Plus, now the animal, if you had been feeding treats, the animal may start to refusing to take treats suddenly, or may start taking them more roughly. So I don't know if you've ever had a dog in a situation where all of a sudden they start snatching at the treats, like they try to take your fingers off.
Lori,
yeah.
We call that angry cookie.
Angry cookie, yes.
We call it angry cookie, yeah.
Perfect. Angry cookie. So an angry cookie is a way of saying, like, I'm not really comfortable with what you're doing, but I'm going to take the cookie anyway. So that's kind of their way of doing it. And then their ears might be going back. The animal might be turning or moving away, kind of fidgety, like pacing, panting might be a little more rapid. Pupils might start to get somewhat dilated in both dogs and cats. So looking at the ears as well in both of those species, they may be rotated. They may be going forward. So those are kind of the moderate levels of stress. Really, the animal's telling you, I'm starting to get really worried about this. And then we get into the higher levels of stress. So that can be things like suddenly freezing in place, which unfortunately can be sometimes misinterpreted as compliance, or, oh, good, the cat or dog is really comfortable now. He's frozen, but actually that's an animal who's frozen in terror and frozen in fear, and it's not a good thing. So other signs we could see might be like excessive panting now, maybe some drooling, trembling, or if the animal is actively trying to get away, trying to move away or avoid what you're doing. And that might look like struggling. That might look like hiding behind a chair. That might look like hiding behind mom or dad's legs, or just really actively trying to get away. At that point, the animal is highly stressed. So if as we humans have still gone ahead and ignored or not responded to all of these signs of stress so far, now we progress into the severe level of stress, which is aggression. So that's the animal's either air snapping or lunging, or finally it might progress to a bite. Or if you've got a dog, that might progress to hissing or swatting or scratching. And that's the animal saying, you did not listen to me the first 50 times I tried to tell you that I'm really scared. And if they could hang a sign on themselves that said, really, I mean it, I will bite, they would. So if we get to that point that that the cat has scratched or the dog has bitten or lunged at us, we have gone way, 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 way too far. And unfortunately, that's sometimes seen as collateral damage, right? In veterinary medicine, like traditionally, it's almost been a badge of honor. I got scratched or I got bitten, but it's really, that's an animal who's truly terrified of their situation.
And now the other thing that I find troubling about that too is now I feel that the pet now might be labeled as a caution, or labeled as potentially aggressive, or labeled
unadoptable.
Maybe, it worries me that that animal may get some label after that, that isn't really true. These were, circumstances where we pushed these animals over their threshold. And I would say, as a veterinary technician, most of the time, I've been a veterinary technician for 30 years, so I've been a vet tech for a long time. I've only gotten bitten once, knock on wood. I think most animals want to give you a warning. I don't think that their first go-to, like you say, Lori, is the aggression. I think there are a whole level of signs and subtleties to let you know, and you have to be tuned in.
Yeah, I think what you said there about giving that animal a label too is such an important point, that's almost putting the blame on the animal. If once you get that caution, will bite, or unadoptable label, that's taking all of the responsibility off of us and putting it all onto them. Whereas, if we had intervened at the lip licking stage and the paw lifting stage and the yawning and looking away stage and simply given that animal some space, at that point, we might not have ever gotten to will bite.
Exactly.
I don't know if you guys remember, I saw this at a continuing education course. This video was played, and I'm just going to try to repeat the highlights, but it was a dog, a shepherd type that was well trained, and it was on a newscast because I don't know if it had done something heroic or it had a particular job. And anyway, they were featuring this dog. So the dog was there with its handler. And the news person moved in. And, of course, we're in this continuing ed class. So, the speaker's like, so watch for the signs. Yeah. And you could see, and she pointed them out too. They're like, okay, here, the dog's like licking its lips, its head's turned away, it's now leaning away. And every time that the dog gave, and again, it was subtle, but gave these signals, the interviewer, the newscaster, moved in closer. And, because he's just like talking to the camera, and he's petting the dog, and then he puts his arm around the dog. And the dog just turns and, and that's when the video cut. And, we were talking like that was really the handler's responsibility, but it was like live TV, right? And so like, what do you do? But that handler should have felt that tension in that dog, talking about like not blaming the dog, blaming the people around the dog, who should be listening, and they're trying to communicate. And again, that was a, really classic, I think, example. When you see it, it's like, oh yeah, but a lot of times we're just not even trying to listen.
I remember that video, Chris, and I was thinking to myself, can you imagine as a human, another human coming up on you like that, in your face, getting closer, putting their arm around you?
And not only that, Kathy, but think of the situation. It was a TV studio. There were bright lights. Right. There were all these people off camera. There were people who were, quote, hiding behind these big lenses, things like that. How did the dog perceive that? It's like, oh my gosh, are these people going to suddenly come out from behind that thing and, try to grab me? I mean, it could have been hot in there. I mean, who knows? But yeah, it's, not only what that guy did, but also the environment, and the dog was not comfortable in that environment. Lori, is this where the term fear aggression came from? Like when we push them to that level where they feel their only choice is to aggress. Did that come out of the fear-free movement, or has that been a term that we've used for a long time?
Yeah, the term didn't come out of the fear-free movement, but I think what did is kind of the knowledge that a lot of aggression is rooted in fear. You do have, you have defensive aggression and offensive aggression and territorial aggression and, different kinds of aggression. So we didn't by any means invent that term, but I do think it's important for people to know that aggression is almost always has a fear component to it, especially aggression at the veterinary office or the groomer. Then you can, now I'm almost betting my life that there's a fear component. I mean, that really, if it got to that point, wow, did we ever screw up as humans and fail that dog or that cat in order to get them to scratch us or bite at us or, whatever the aggression was. So, and by no means, not intentional on our part, of course. And one of the things that, as you were telling that story about the dog and the newscaster, the hair in the back of my neck was standing up. It's really hard for people who are good at observing animal body language to watch some of these like Facebook reel videos and of the kid hugging the dog and the baby goes in and we can see like written all over the dog's face. They're turning away, they're licking their lips, they're blinking, they're flicking their tongue. They're giving all of these signs that they don't want to be hugged by the baby, but the adults in the room are saying, oh, isn't that cute? Isn't that funny? And it's like, oh God, no, it's not. I promise you that dog is not laughing and wouldn't be laughing, but unfortunately the pervasiveness of those, little video clips of that isn't doing dogs any favors.
Right. Yeah. Because then people want to imitate or one up or what have you. It seems, I guess, fairly obvious, like as we're talking about this, what the benefits would be to people working in the profession. Anybody that, quote, touches a dog, should probably have this knowledge, right? And you're doing your best to get it out there. But since a lot of our listeners are pet owners, what would you say is the greatest benefit for the pet owner taking this course?
So Fear Free has an awesome pet owner website called Fear Free Happy Homes. And it, unlike the course that you finished, Kathy, which is geared toward veterinary professionals, we have little videos, little handouts, podcasts coming soon to pet owners. So in Fear Free Happy Homes, I would say the main benefit of the owner is that, they finally are able to listen to their pets for the first time. And one great thing about this particular website is that it's set apart from all of the other pet advice that you get. There's tons of it out there on the internet, right? Like, how do you know who to believe and who not to believe? But with Fear Free Happy Homes, all of the content is reviewed by veterinary behaviorists. So it's all modern, science-backed content. You won't find any veterinary behaviorists giving outdated, old, disproven advice. So we want the latest and greatest no old school advice out there. So really, thinking about things from your pet's perspective. So there's little videos on there about whether you want to learn to train your cat to go in the carrier, or learn to teach your dog to sit, or how to settle, or crate training, house training, all kinds of training advice is on there, as well as how do you make a veterinary visit less stressful for your dog or cat? How do you deal with separation anxiety in a dog? How do you deal with thunderstorm phobia or fireworks? So all kinds of like really good resources out there. And the real benefit is that it's backed in science. You know, it's really reviewed by veterinary behaviorists, really well researched, well thought out, and it's trusted content, unlike a lot of the stuff out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel so like so many people, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. You know, I'll just Google a question and it's like the first thing that comes up. I'm like, oh, must be truth. You know?
It must be true.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, I wanted to just circle back real quickly too. You mentioned the FAS scale and you said, you know, so that veterinary professionals and I guess then their pet owners too are kind of on the same page. So would this be analogous to like Kathy and I using a pain scale or something like that, where it's information that's shared between the veterinary professionals? So like a groomer could say, you know, this dog is a 3 and out of 5 or whatever it is. And then the vet could say, you know, in our office, that dog is also a 3 out of 5, but then when they go to doggy daycare, they're a 1 out of 5. Is that kind of what so people can share that very quickly with a number and know exactly what to expect?
Yeah, exactly. And likening it to a pain scale is a good, you know, that's a good analogy there, I think. So an objective kind of, these are the observable, measurable behaviors that I saw in this animal in this circumstance. So, and you're right that a dog may be extremely fearful at the vet in the exam room, but they may be fine in the lobby, or vice versa. They may be terrified in the lobby and okay when they're in the exam room away from the other animals. So that's exactly right. So giving them really, instead it's trying to get away from those labels of this dog is aggressive, this dog is dangerous.
That is fractious.
Yes, that cat is fractious. Exactly. Instead, so we say, you know, oh, Fluffy stopped taking treats when I got him in the bathtub. So I think he's a little bit nervous. So I gave him some space. I backed up, and then he started taking treats again once I did this. So it's keeping records is also another important part of this. Like, how is the animal feeling every step of the way? Are they okay when they first go into the grooming salon or the vet office? Do they start to, like, maybe they're an FAS level 1 or 2 when they first get there? Maybe they're an FAS 3 or 4 by the time they get to the car, because they get car sick and they can't stand car travel. So that's another kind of important part of that too. But yeah, exactly. So those thinking about where that animal is at any given time, and then how to act on it once you see it. So if you've got an animal who is an FAS 1 or 2, for the most part, you're safe to proceed with caution. You're safe to continue doing your exam or continue doing your groom or whatever procedure you're doing. Once you start to see things raising past a 2, though, into the level 3, those moderate fear stage, now you want to be careful. Now you want to use caution, and the animal may need a short break. He may need you to back off. It doesn't always mean, you know, we have to abort the procedure and can't do it. That's it. Sometimes it's just literally a matter of giving the animal a 5-second break, take a breath, step away, and then resume offering treats to the animal. Maybe we use a higher value treat. Maybe we just offer choice or space or a known behavior. Maybe we offer a toy. So there's lots of different ways that we can take the pressure off the animal or try and relieve that stress. So yeah, the FAS scale is really helpful in that regard. And there are a couple of them. There's one for dog and one for cats on Fear Free Happy Homes called the FAS Spectrum. So it's got little drawings of cartoon dogs and cats, and it shows you the body language at kind of each level.
Lori, let me ask you this. When I'm thinking about fear, is it possible that we can eliminate all fear in any situation, at home or at the groomer? Is it possible to eliminate fear, or would you say that maybe it's a little bit of a balance between pleasant and unpleasant experiences. Because we know for sure that fear-free experiences for these animals are going to give them more confidence. It's better for their independence, their joy, their quality of life. But is it possible to mitigate all fear?
I would say that for almost any animal, there going to be some level of fear simply with stepping through the door.
Right.
You've got fear pheromones from other animals, things, especially if it's a cat. Unfortunately, that cats really do better at home. They really do better not be. They'll do that. Thank you very much. I'll stay in my cat tree at home. So unfortunately, once you take them out of that environment, there's already a little bit of fear. So it's really about reducing that fear as much as we can. And for some of those animals, it can be offering treats. It can be giving them space, giving them choice. For some of those animals who have already learned that, oh my gosh, the veterinarian is a terrible place to be. It's awful. You might have the veterinarian offer some calming supplements or some calming medications just to get that animal into a better space where they will be more receptive to taking treats and will be more receptive to things like handling. So it needn't start and stop at treats. We think about what smells we introduce. So we can introduce calming pheromones to the animals. There's dog ones and cat ones, and just even taking some deli turkey and heating it in the microwave for a little bit like that. Now your exam room smells like turkey. So it's a simple.
I'd like to also just point out from the perspective of a veterinary technician to let owners know that we don't give your pet sedations or muzzle them because we think they're bad. I do it because I think what I'm going to do is going to elicit that response. So if there's calming pheromones, if there's calming treats, if there needs to be a sedation, then I think the owners should consider that. It's not that we think you're bad. It's what we're doing that may elicit that response.
Yeah. And we even use the term calming medications instead of sedation a lot of times because it can be a loaded term for a lot of owners. They just hear the term sedation and they immediately think like this animal is a zombie. He's out of it. He's drooling. He's nothing. But I mean, my own dog gets pre-visit pharmaceuticals to go to the veterinary office. So I personally, an animal who's getting sedation, we're doing them a kindness. We're making it so that instead of changing your dog or cat's personality, we're trying to bring it out. We're trying to let them be who they are. And if they're in such a state of fear and they're so worked up that they can't even take treats, sometimes medication can help with that. Sometimes medication can help calm them down to the point where now they are able to take treats and now they're able to learn new responses to the veterinarian. So now instead of learning, this is where I go to get poked and prodded and restrained and squeezed, they're learning, oh, this is where I go get yummy treats. And yeah, they pick up my feet sometimes and they look in my ears, but that's okay. They give me hot dogs throughout. So it's really about creating that experience to them, but they have to be receptive to it. They have to be calm enough that they're able to learn new responses. So that's where the medications can really come in and start to really be helpful.
Yeah, I've noticed just changing up variables, like you mentioned, Lori, like, maybe I can tell a dog is getting tense. I'm trying to, maybe get them to lie down and they don't want to do it. And so then I get up and I have them follow me and then we do some, sits and we, give them some treats and we play some games or, whatever. And, or maybe take them outside, give them a chance to go to the bathroom or just changing, kind of breaking out of that stress cycle and then coming back, and asking them to lie down. And oftentimes they'll do it, so it doesn't have to always be a big deal. Like you said, it could just be a little break.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times historically, the tendency has been, let's just muscle through. Let's just get this done as quickly as possible so that the animal can get out of here as quickly as possible. And what we're finding is that's usually more harmful than helpful to just try and muscle through it and get her done as quickly as you can, because what that usually does is make it harder for the next time. So if the dog starts to struggle a little bit, the best thing to do is give that dog space, But if instead we grab on tighter or call in another technician or a third technician, I'm not being ridiculous, am I, Kathy? I'm not exaggerating.
Not.
But so, if the dog now learns, oh, I struggle a little bit and now it gets even more scary, next time I'll bite. And so now that dog gets the caution will bite sign and, gets all these labels attached to him when we could have just given him a 5-second break and some peanut butter and solved the problem. But the tendency to want to get through it as quickly as possible is one that, can often backfire on us.
Yeah. And that's how we were trained. I started as a technician in like 86, 87. And you're absolutely right, Lori. That's what they told us. The best thing you can do for this pet is to power through and get it done and get them out.
So maybe this is a good time because I was reading on your website, to define or explain the difference between fear, anxiety, and a phobia.
Ooh, okay. So fear is when the animal is reacting to something that's going on in the moment that's scary. So for the dog or cat, there's an actual boogeyman in the room. Now, for them, a boogeyman could be a needle. It could be a thunderstorm. It could be a certain smell. It could be a certain doctor. But there's an actual boogeyman present, and they're responding to something that's happening in their environment as it's happening. Anxiety, which is the anticipation of a danger or a threat. So there's no actual boogeyman in the room at that time, but there could be. So oftentimes, to use a veterinary example, so a dog might be on the examination table. He may get restrained and may get a blood draw, and he's afraid. He's afraid because he's being restrained. He's afraid because that needle hurts going into his vein. So that's a fearful event. The next time that dog comes into the vet, he now may experience anxiety. Nobody is touching him yet. Nobody has come at him yet. Nobody has restrained him or put a needle in him. But now he has that memory, and that's causing anxiety about what might be about to happen. So not only are we dealing with that fear memory, but it's now the what if, the what could be. I remember what happened last time here. Don't you guys try and pull that again on me. So that's the anxiety part. So phobia would be now we're on fear on steroids. Like now we're in all out panic state. And to them, it's a matter of life and death at this point to that animal. Like they really are in fear of their life. So some of these poor dogs with, severe thunder phobia, they're panting, they're drooling, they're shaking, they're trembling, they're hiding, they really think the world is crashing down. And it doesn't, or, a phobia of the veterinary office because they think people are trying to kill them. It sounds ridiculous to say it, but it doesn't have to make sense to us. It doesn't have to be rational to us. It is rational to them. And it is their perception of how things are going. So if they're in a phobic state, they really are, it's life and death. They're panicked. And we may see some more passive signs of the tonic immobility, the completely shut down, just frozen in fear, or they may turn to aggression. But both of them are extreme states of fear.
And to us, it may appear irrational, is what you're saying. To them, it's very real and life and death. But as an observer who doesn't maybe know how to listen or what the trigger for this phobia is, it's kind of an over the top response, right? It seems a little bit irrational to us, maybe.
Yes, and often we try and quote unquote comfort the animal by bringing them closer to it. We make this mistake with puppies a lot, unfortunately. A puppy's a little afraid of something, and instead of backing off and giving that puppy space, we try and drag that puppy closer. Like, oh, it's okay. She's a nice person. Just say hi. And we kind of drag on the leash a little bit, or we pick the puppy up and kind of force them to say hello to somebody. And we can do a lot of damage that way by not backing off and giving the puppy space and respecting. When they say they're afraid of something, that what they need is space. And so because it doesn't seem rational to us that a little baby puppy should be afraid of whether a person or a snowman or, whatever, a fire hydrant, whatever it is that may be scary to them, it's not scary to us. So a lot of this is really about seeing things from their perspective and listening when they tell you I'm afraid. You need to kind of respect that and listen to that and respond accordingly.
Can fear be undone? Can we reverse that into maybe a positive?
Yes, we can. So we will do things like the term classical counter conditioning. So introducing some treats or some positive things into a situation where an animal has already developed a fear. So it could potentially be of the groomer or the veterinarian. So let's just use the example of a syringe. So for me, one of my dogs had like a fear of a syringe. So I took an empty syringe home, no needle, no nothing, and started just pairing that syringe with treats. I started off by just setting it on the ground so the animal can investigate it. I'm not bringing it toward you. You can go and investigate it on your own. You can sniff it. I'm going to feed you treats when you do. So really changing their mind about what's going on. And now maybe I can pick up the syringe and hold it in my hand. And then the animal's not afraid. I can continue feeding treats, really kind of changing their mind and turning around how they think about it. So now that it's in my hand, maybe I can touch you with it. Can I give you a little touch in some place like the shoulder? Is that okay? So really asking the dog or cat every step of the way if it's okay with them to proceed. And if it is, continue to go. But it's really going at their pace. We have to be really careful with counter conditioning an existing fear. People want to try and solve it right away. And it's something that usually does take a bit of time and really should work with a professional on that, especially if it's a profound fear and something that you really want to get. The order matters of when the scary stimulus, the order matters a lot. So we definitely don't want to get that wrong, and we don't want to go too fast or go outside of where the animal is comfortable.
It sounds like you're just saying, Lori, that we're actually asking for consent from the animal. Would you say that's true?
Yes. Yeah. I think every time we are looking and observing their body language and responding to it, we're asking them in a way, how do you feel about this? Mm-hmm. And if my answer is a loose body and a wagging tail and soliciting attention, kind of loving on me, then that's the dog saying, I feel pretty good, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And then how do you feel about this peanut butter? How do you feel about that? And if my response is an enthusiastic licking and, some more loose, we're really looking for loose, wiggly, non-stiff body language there. And then that can indicate their consent or, coming toward us, or the way your dog might greet you if you were gone at work all day and you come home. There's no doubt in people's mind what that body language means, that excited, waggy, jumping on you, wiggly, loose kind of thing. That's what we're looking for as the ultimate in, I really like what you're doing. Please feed me more of that peanut butter.
Lori, I was lucky enough to be able to find a certified fear-free groomer. And boy, what a difference that made in his grooming experiences. And now when I drop him off at the groomer, he's like, you can go, Mom. Like, you could drop me off a block. I'm with these girls now. Like, he enjoys the entire experience from the time he comes in to the time that he leaves. And he's so excited to see them. And he's got that loose body language and giving everybody kisses. And then I leave and he's like, go ahead, go. I don't need you for this, Mom. I don't need you for this. I'm good. But my goodness, what a difference it made in things like ear cleaning and toenail trimming and teeth brushing. And, it kind of makes me think too, that one of the things that, I do as a veterinary professional is similar to what they did at the groomers, these friendly visits where you come in and nothing bad happens. You just come in and you get a cookie and people pet you and then you go. And it just learning that something bad doesn't always happen when you go to the vet or the groomer.
Yeah, I think well, first of all, good for you for finding yourself a fear-free groomer. That is awesome. And I have a similar experience during COVID, when I dropped my own dogs off at their fear-free vet for an exam. It was like, oh, bye, mom. I didn't even exist, but that was a huge compliment to me. Like these are border collies who aren't necessarily hugely outgoing and lovey. And they were really happy to leave me because the person they were going with had treats and took them in. And I knew that gave me the confidence that what's going on inside those doors when I can't be in there with them is good stuff. So I think that's a great example. And yeah, the happy visits are something, big, huge advocate of those, whether it's for the veterinarian or the groomer, sometimes called victory visits or fun visits or happy visits, where you just literally take the animal there, go in, feed him treats, and leave. In some cases, that's all. If the fear is really profound, that's all they can do. Or if they just have a little fear, sometimes it's go in, maybe you want to get on the scale, get a treat for going on the scale, go say hi to the client care representative, get a treat for that, and then we leave. So the really important thing about that is that no procedures are being done. We're not trying to, we'll just do a quick toenail trim while we're here. No. Defeats the purpose. But yeah, love those.
You mentioned bringing your dog to the vet during COVID, and that was such a huge source of stress for so many people. They skipped exams and things for 2 years because they didn't think their dog would do well going to the vet. They felt that they felt that they needed to be present, that their dog would just be completely stressed out without them. And, so hearing both of you, talk about the grooming experience, Kathy, and then your veterinary visit, Lori, I mean, how great is this, to do all this work on the front end so that you never know what situation is going to come up, that you have that confidence that they're going to be okay, and that they actually love the experience. So I think that was awesome.
No, and that's a great point. And even thank you for saying that, because that reminds me that even without COVID, when we are able to go in with our animals, there are still plenty of animals out there not getting care because of their fear of the vet. So over half of cat owners report, for example, not taking their cat in for regular veterinary care because their cat hates the vet. So 58% of cat owners say their cat hates the vet. And 38% of those owners say, good, just thinking about the vet makes me stressed out, the owner. So right. It's really, there's a huge, think about all those animals who are not getting regular veterinary care because they're afraid or their owner is afraid.
Well, this brings me to another point that I wanted to raise as I was listening to you. I think that maybe veterinary professionals that are not aware of this movement and fear-free might think, I don't have the time for this. I'm not going to, my staff is busy. We're overworked. We've got to get them in. We've got to get them out. And, coming in and getting treats, that's an expense for me. But I'm hearing between the lines that you do this work on the front end and the visits go so much more smoothly. You're going to actually get more clientele because now all these animals, especially the cats, as you mentioned, that were fearful, are not going to come in to see you versus not.
Absolutely. And they're and retention of clients as well. So you get that. That's a huge one too. So they're going to stick with you the very first time their pet has a fear-free experience. They're not going to any other vet. They're like, I am with you for life. That's right. It. So it really, you hit on all the, the big points. It really does pay in terms of ROI. It's definitely a good ROI for your business.
ROI, for those of you who don't know, is return on investment. You know what, Kathy? I'd like to take a break at this point in this podcast because there is no better time to introduce our new sponsor that has a subscription enrichment box for pets. So it is called a Dog's Best Life Box.com. That's where you can go and find it. Check it out. They have one-time, monthly, or quarterly seasonal subscriptions.
If you use the promo code PETPOD22, PETPOD 22, all capital letters, you'll get a 10% discount on your order.
And just for our listeners, a special gift that is a fantastic treat pouch that includes, it has a built-in squeaker. I've never seen this out there. I mean, this company really strives to have products that you can't typically get at your local pet store or the big box store.
So be sure to visit our friends at adogsbestlifebox.com to get your order in now.
So we've kind of, talked a lot about fear-free and given great, examples and so forth, but let's go back to the beginning. When was it founded? Who founded it and why?
So it was founded by Dr. Marty Becker back in 2016, but actually the idea for Fear-Free was born before that. And Dr. Becker loves to tell this story, how he was attending a lecture by veterinary behaviorist Dr. Karen Overall, and he heard her say that fear is the worst thing a social species can experience.
Wow.
And it causes permanent damage to the brain. So he, at that moment, had this realization, like his life, his career flashed before his eyes, and he went,
it was a true epiphany.
Yes, it was a true epiphany. And he went, oh, expletive. I've been causing animals fear every single day without meaning to, of course. But every time I show up to work, I cause a dog or cat to be afraid. And what a terrible thing. And oh dear, like what? So he started thinking, well, we got to change this. We got to, there has to be a global realization that, that's not acceptable to be causing. We're not doing it on purpose. We're not causing fear on purpose, but we certainly are causing fear. And that quote really stuck with Dr. Becker, and he was the one who founded it in 2016.
And so it's both a website that has resources and, that you've mentioned. And we've also talked about the certification program that Kathy took and her groomer took. So is this the only program of this type that exists? And who is eligible to take the certification portion of that?
So Fear-Free is unique in that all of our content is reviewed by board certified veterinary behaviorists, whether that is pet owner content or veterinary content. So to answer your question about who's eligible to take it, everybody. It just depends on where you are. So if you are a groomer, there's a Fear-Free groomer certification program. If you are a pet sitter, there's a Fear-Free pet sitter certification program.
Okay.
If you're a technician or in the veterinary industry or a veterinarian, there's a veterinary certification. We also, at this point, have added even birds and horses specific courses. So we have training for all kinds of professionals. We're soon to add daycare and boarding Fear-Free certification. So that'll be coming later this summer. And if you are just a pet owner, you can go to Fear-Free Happy Homes and learn for free. So all kinds of, so there's all kinds of videos on there and handouts on there. And I would definitely suggest checking out the curated kits that we have on Fear-Free Happy Homes. So there's one on just separation anxiety. There's one on thunder and fireworks. There's one that's just called, Dogs 101, Cats 101. There's a training one. So all kinds of different, whatever you're interested in learning about, and you can just kind of search on it, and you can be assured that that content will be modern, science-based, reviewed by veterinary behaviorist content, as opposed to just Joe Schmo on the internet. No offense to Joe Schmo on the internet, but if you're listening, Joe Schmo. But you can definitely trust the information that's on Fear-Free Happy Homes. And if you are a professional, then it would be fearfreepets.com. So if you're of either a veterinarian or a groomer or other kind of animal care professional, you would want to go to fearfreepets.com. And the courses are online, so they're self-paced. And you go through them and can get continuing education credits if you are a veterinarian or a trainer and that's important to you. They are available for continuing education credits.
And Kathy, why don't you tell Lori a little bit about our experience with Penelope before we close our show?
Well, I was just saying, too, how excited I was to see that you would add other animals into this group of fear-free certification, the birds and the horses. And Chris and I had this experience this year where we were called to the farm to treat a mini pig named Penelope. And boy, it was a learning curve for Chris and I, the first time that we went out there to try to understand her behavior, to recognize what she was fearful of and what she would consent to. And Chris and I came up with this great idea to use the snuffle ball as her motivation. And she loved it because pigs love to root and snuffle. And so that was her reward. And that's how we got her engaged in things that we wanted her to do for physical therapy. And you would not believe the things that she consented to, getting on, the Bosu balls, stepping over cavalettis, doing what we almost called Pig Olympics. We made it into a game.
Yep. Obstacle
courses. And in the end, we also had to put goggles on her to be able to laser her. And I thought, I don't know that that's going to happen, but she did. She consented to it because at this point, she has sort of got this trust relationship with Chris and I now, where she knows she's going to get rewarded. And we know that we're going to back off if she doesn't like it. And she put them on. We have pictures of her on the internet of her wearing these glasses. And it was a great feeling because she got better. And initially, she was told, the owner was told that the best option for Penelope was euthanasia. And Chris and I were like, no, it's not. And she got better. But boy, it was a learning curve. And it did take us a while to sort of understand that her emotions, and she could go very quickly from happy and tail wagging to frustrated or anger.
And the snuffle ball worked really great too, because she loved her treats. She was a pig, but we couldn't safely give them to her because she would take them so aggressively. And she was, it was just difficult she would drop them and then she'd get frustrated. And I tried to present them on like a platter to her, like a Frisbee, and, they'd fall and whatever, but the snuffle ball worked great. And she recognized that as the source of the treats. And so she would follow you to the end of the earth.
That's an awesome story. I love that you guys were able to find what was rewarding for that animal. Because so much of this is about, being creative and just finding what's reinforcing for that animal in that moment. So that pig is very lucky. Her Royal Highness Penelope is very lucky to have found you too.
And Lori, as we're closing, can you leave us with what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with? What's the one pearl of wisdom?
Listen to your dog or cat. Listen to what they're saying. And they always have something to teach us. We just have to be willing to put ourselves in the role of student and let them teach us.
Here.
Nice. So where can our audience find you? Can you repeat the website information and so forth?
So if you are a pet owner, you want to go to fearfreehappyhomes.com, or if you're simply somebody whose dog or cat is afraid of something, fearfreehappyhomes.com. And if you are a veterinary professional or a groomer, trainer, pet sitter, you want to go to fearfreepets.com.
Thanks for your time and expertise, Lori. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We all know that one of the greatest ways to exercise our dogs is through swimming. And we definitely want our pets to be safe when they're around water. So let's talk about our sponsor, Heads Up Pets Water Collars, because they are all about preventing your dog from drowning.
The unique design of the Heads Up Pets Water Collar keeps your pet's head and nose above the water, even if they become unconscious. So go to their website at headsuppets.com and put your order in today using promo code PETPOD22, that's PETPOD 22, all capital letters, to receive your 10% discount on your order and take the fear out of having your dog around the water.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our show. Follow us on Facebook or on Instagram at PetAbility Podcast.
For more information about Kathy's books and living with blind dogs, please go to enableyourpet.com. Thank you, and please tune in next time.